Hey, Jeremiah here of Team Mashup. First off, I want to give a quick thank you to Santana Starks and the Berwyn Eagles Club for hosting this event, as well as a thank you to Palm Beach Bots for sponsoring. This very first fight is my overhead hammer saw, and the fight's already over because he didn't have much top armor. That first chop got right into his wiring. Right now, he's dead. I'm just trying to push him back towards the door. Okay, Nosferatu. This is the Crescent Meds, an overhead horizontal spinner. Yeah. I was kind of taking it a little easy to start with because I knew as soon as I hit that blade, it was going to pop it off. In general, overhead spinners have a pretty bad day against vertical spinners. So I popped him up onto the side here, but I knew that they wouldn't. This is Team Guac and Queso. I knew they wouldn't want to have the fight end that way, so knocked him back down. And besides that, having the fight go a little bit longer gives me a little bit of a chance to get used to how Nosferatu drives in this particular arena. Really, for the most part, not as much going on in this particular fight. They were still able to drive after their weapon was knocked off, but not much of a threat to me anymore. It's actually a pretty fancy setup that they had at this particular event. They had a few different camera angles, and they could switch between them as the action moved into different areas. Okay, so this is the second fight. Chop Shop. I'm against External Screaming, a horizontal bot that's been at a lot of the events in the area recently. It keeps getting better and better as time goes on. I'm running the titanium front wedge. And things are going okay for so far. But there's one point in this particular fight where I think it might be right about here. Oh, yep. He ripped the blade off of the motor, leaving me to be pretty much harmless. At this point, all I can really do is try to control the match. Try to protect myself from that horizontal. I'm trying to get behind him and push his blade into the wall. It's at least I believe it's a direct drive. Yeah, I think it's a direct drive weapon, which means if I can hit it into the wall hard enough, it might bend the motor shaft. Right there, it hurts me pretty good. He gets his blade into the wheels on the side. Yeah, he cut through the arm. The motor's just dangling. One of the wheels has a big chunk of foam hanging down, just causing me to bounce around. I mean, even though this one didn't go all that well for me, it was still a pretty fun fight. Okay, so yeah, that one went to external screaming, knocking Shop down into the loser's bracket. Nosferatu versus Rampage. Rampage is it's a kit bot, Viper kit bot, and its driver's very new to the ant-weight scene. He's done videos for the like the Hexbug robotics. He actually had a whole arena and a bunch of them there. It's kind of neat to see that. I'm not running my weapon all the time throughout this because he doesn't have a spare frame or anything for his robot. If I bend up his frame and totally destroy him, he'll be out of the tournament, which, I mean, that's not very welcoming to folks who haven't been involved very much. So, but I also need to make sure that I show that I'm still winning. I got to make sure I show that the weapon's not broken or anything. What I do really like about Viper kits is they're a great starter robot. They're not that expensive as far as combat robotics go, and there's a couple different versions of it that you can, or add-ons you can buy for it, because the basic one is just motors and a wedge bot. This particular one, they've put the vertical spinner on it. And, well, it's kind of hard in the base version to get that spinner to hit a robot as low to the ground as Nosferatu is. It's still a good starting point. And as you kind of learn more about it, you can then use the components from the Viper, the silver sparks, the wheels, the tiny ESCs, they're excellent brush ESCs for building your own custom robot. Every time he gets flipped over, his wheels are still touching the ground, so he can sort of move. Yeah, that's the end of the fight. Back over to Chop Shop in the losers bracket, fighting Womderus. Womderus has been involved in these events since the beginning, I think. I believe he was at the original WRC event back in, what was that, 2020 or 2021? It's gone through a couple different versions. This newest version's actually pretty decent. Really, anything that has a blade overhead is not something I'm very happy about fighting with Chop Shop. I can't... Right now I'm revving up the motor, but I can't hit him because I'm going to go right into that blade. Just trying to get the angle. Trying to get behind him, get to the side. Right there, right there. His spinner clips my hammer saw blade and bends the motor sideways. It's a serious problem with this robot. I keep on losing the back motor. I think I'm going to try having the arm rest a little bit higher up so that things don't hit it all the time. I'm just hitting him with it because it doesn't work anymore. Really, we both got in about one hit. I would say his was a better hit. He took out my weapon motor. In the off screen where they were switching between and you couldn't see it, I did bring down the saw on his top plate one time and put a gash through it. I did win that one. So this is probably my favorite fight of the event. Oh, little technical difficulties there a second. But anyway, this is Rules of Acquisition. It's rematch. I fought him before in a grudge match at Michigan Mashup, where we kind of traded blows back and forth. He kind of won the early fight at that fight, and I won the later fight. I have different drive motors, which is helping quite a bit this time around. Faster. I took off the front forks because those are something he was just getting a hold of and ripping off. One of the big advantages against him that I have is that I'm a lot more controllable. When he spins up his weapon, well, it hits really hard. One of his wheels pretty much always comes up off the ground. He's not very wide. Right here, he took some type of electrical damage inside. Back to Chop Shop. I had something wrong with the servo, or maybe I just put the arm on in the wrong place, so the arm is stuck upward. Might not be a bad thing, though. It'll keep it out of the way. This is against Almighty Crixus. It's driven, in this case, by Santana's son, who has been doing pretty well with it. He drives aggressively like his dad. I'm just trying to keep him either only hitting those front forks or getting him on the side. At this point, he gets up on his edge, but, well, there's a little bit more to talk about in that particular hit right there. He kind of hit the side on me, and he actually grabbed one of the belts that drive from the back wheel to the front wheel. So I've now lost drive on one of my front wheels. However, it actually hurt him a lot worse. If it was intentional, you can see the belt is stuck in his drum and it's locked his drum completely up. If this was intentional, that would be an entanglement. But obviously I'm not wanting my drive belts to get stuck in his motor. This fight would have gone differently, I believe, if that had not happened. It's just kind of bad luck in this case. I'm having a little bit more trouble driving because I've only got 3-wheel drive at this point. But being that he has no weapon, yeah, striking down on top there. He's got a metal top plate, though, so I'm not going to be getting through that. This is my worst spinner. It's very dull. End of fight. Okay, Chop Shop again versus Rules of Acquisition. So after fighting Rules of Acquisition with Nosferatu, it dropped him into the loser's bracket right with Chop Shop. He gets some really good hits right out of there off the bat. Messes up the one drive side. The rest of the fight, I'm fighting that right side. They just keep getting stuck. If I shake the arm a little bit, sometimes I can get them to engage. But with a control bot like this one, you really don't want to be driving in a circle or not have fine control. As I've said before, though, Rules of Acquisition, every time he backs up, you see one of his wheels pops up off the ground. He's having trouble getting a line on hitting me as well. Actually, I think he might only have one-wheel drive right now. Maybe that initial exchange hurt both of us. I've got my spinner running and I'm just shaking the arm like crazy, trying to keep the drive motors. It's a rather uneventful fight because neither of us can hit each other. Right here I flip over, and normally my arm would be able to flip me back right side up, but the servo is not in quite the right position, so that right there is about as far as the arm can go forward right now. I think when he hit me in that initial exchange, it made it skip a couple of teeth on the gear arm. So yeah, that one goes to Rules of Acquisition and knocks Chop Shop out of the competition. Nosferatu is still in the winner's bracket. This is against Flip. Flip is the 2019 Circa event champion. I went into this fight actually not giving Flip or Bryce of Team Broken Robotics the credit that they were due. Just visually looking at the robot, I didn't think it was going to be as hard of a fight as it ended up being. I mean, it's a circle with an arm on it. But he is just so good at driving it where he keeps that flipper always pointed towards me. And the UHMW ring around the outside was very hard to bite into. At one point in this fight, he picks me up and drops me on top of himself, and in that case, my spinner hits one of his wheels, breaking it loose and getting it jammed against the side, which is why the rest of the fight you see is just kind of crab walking a bit, but he still keeps managing to keep that fork towards me. I managed to get behind him at this point, but my spinner just not biting in. I need something new for dealing with. When I first built this robot, I wasn't expecting so many like TPU kind of robots or even UHMW, because it just wasn't a common thing at that point. Anyway, that fight goes to Flip and Bryce. I think it had to have been really close, maybe a point one way or the other, because I would have obviously taken damage. Yeah, close fight. Congrats to Bryce, who actually does go on to take first place at the event. I'll be looking forward to a rematch with you someday. So this ends up being my last fight of the day. That's against Unicorn Deathblade, Team Crackhead Robotics. He has built the driver of Unicorn Deathblade has built or made the CADs for many of the weapon systems at this event. His previous versions of the robot have not done all that well, but I'm having a really bad day against it. He's got a titanium blade under there that outreaches me by a good 1.5 inches, and it is hitting that front nylon area underneath my blade and absolutely shredding it. One of the biggest mistakes I made in this particular fight is I'm running the large disc spinner instead of running my asymmetrical bar. The motor that the asymmetrical bar was on had dropped a magnet. So I'm running the big disc, and he shredded me pretty bad. Right now, I've lost drive on one of the wheels at the front. I managed to get in a lucky hit, or possibly just the attrition of the battle knocked one of his wheels off. But it's really a little bit too little too late. I end up justifiably being the loser of that fight and getting knocked out of the tournament. Still managed a 5th place finish with Nosferatu and a 9th place with Chop Shop.